it's a very short time away till we see WWE Hell in a Cell, the pay-per-view, which of course will be on very shortly. Not a lot of time between the last pay-per-view and this one, but certainly WWE have a lot to do to get the build and indeed those matches on the card, and certainly they've done great things this week by getting us 3 matches that we can talk about after a week's worth of TV tapings. Now of course Randy Orton will take on Sheamus for that WWE Championship, and indeed Sheamus lost the belt at the last pay-per-view. Now it's Randy Orton's time. The age of Orton has once again recommenced, and I think Randy Orton going into this very strong. On TV this week, very much a babyface, smiling and totally breaking down in a way some of those Viper-like tendencies and becoming a lot more of a fan favourite.
Yeah, we saw that Night of Champions, the overkill smile when he was on the turnbuckle, and then when he came out on Raw he had some dodgy smiles as well. Doesn't suit him. I don't buy it, but I do hope that Sheamus can get the strap back around his waist, and that yeah, they don't let Randy Orton hold the title all the way to Survivor Series. That would be awful.
Promos caught on this past Monday night's Raw between Randy Orton and Sheamus, and indeed great TV time and a great opportunity for Sheamus to be in the ring with a guy like Randy Orton. Now of course traditionally it's been said that bookers have been quite favourable towards Orton. It's been known that backstage, just like a lot of fans, people are very high on Randy Orton, indeed behind the cameras as well as all of us fans. So I think it's somebody who can get Sheamus a lot of heat, and of course now with this new babyface gimmick, it's very likely that Sheamus is going to come out of this, I think, a better heel.
Yeah, if he goes over he'll be completely I think solidified as probably the top heel, and why not, because he is great and he shouldn't have lost that strap, I don't think, at Night of Champions, which was a great pay-per-view. I think probably pay-per-view of the year so far, maybe better than Money in the Bank, I think. Well, no, maybe not. I'm
thinking about it, and of course traditionally we've been a little bit sarcastic when we've called pay-per-view of the year, but when you mention it, I quickly thought back to WrestleMania and perhaps some of the other shows that we've watched here on WrestleDope in the past year. I have to say it probably is up there with the best.
Yeah, I think so.
Night of Champions, a great pay-per-view, and like you say, Sheamus losing that belt in the 6-pack challenge, not a bad way for him to lose it. So many other guys involved there and lots of back and forth, and indeed Sheamus didn't really feel like he lost any strength. And again also Chris Jericho this week talking about how he has worked fans, and indeed that stipulation that he was going to leave the E if he lost the match. He said, well, I'm a heel, I renege on my promises.
We should go see Fozzy. I saw a poster for it.
Fozzy, probably a great live band.
Probably awful at the same time. But yeah, I like where Jericho's going with this, and he's on Raw again next week, so I'm sure it'll probably be the week after the tour starts, but we get another week of Jericho, which is always a good thing. And yeah, some nice soccer, I think, going on from the fallout of last week's pay-per-view on Monday and the tweets and whatnot, but I think everybody was surprised to see him turn up on Raw.
Jericho involved in that 6-pack challenge, and I hope that this new focus on him, and not so much new but a refreshed look at what his character is when they're placing him in these positions of losing and then staying on his face while he suffers defeat, I think it could be going somewhere, and maybe there's a reason why he is making promises like this. They want to build up a lot of heel heat, even more than he already has, and maybe we're going to look at another Jericho reign, but for the moment it's Orton and Sheamus Sheamus, and I think these two have put on good shows the past few pay-per-views, and I think they have always performed well with each other, without each other, and also of course Sheamus now not just the hometown favourite with myself. I think now I really buy the guy, and I look forward to seeing what happens. Personally, at this stage, with just about a week to go to that pay-per-view, I'm going to say that it's too early for the age of Orton to end.
I would agree. Yeah, they're not going to give him the title for, what is it, 2 weeks? I mean, that's probably the shortest space in the that I can remember between pay-per-views, but again, I'm sure there's a justified reason for it. But yeah, 2 weeks of a title run for Orton, it's not really going to happen, is it? I don't think he would let that happen. I think he would probably throw a real-life Orton hissy fit and start punching things.
Certainly, you can imagine what the face of Randy would be like if they came to him after 2 weeks and said, you're going to have to drop the belt to Sheamus. As you say, highly unlikely for Orton to do that, so let's see what happens. But personally, I think Orton will be the guy that retains the belt at Hell in a Cell. It is our predictions, and I'm sure, like in WWE style, just days before the event goes on, the other matches will be announced. Still 2 to talk about, but I'd expect maybe 6 or perhaps 7, like the most recent show. Of course, big build on SmackDown continuing for that Kane versus Undertaker World Heavyweight Championship match, which will take place in a cell, and indeed that's going to be interesting to see that one. Of course, Paul Bearer brought back to TV this week.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, I thought. Jesus, the build through the show with Undertaker sitting on the steps in the back, I was a little bit skeptical about that, and his acting skills are a little bit worse for wear, I think. But Paul Bearer, yeah, it was a nice touch. I think it was nicely done. But I think they missed out on he should have done his I'm not going to do an impression of him, but he should have done what we all think he should have done, but he didn't.
I have to say it's true that I was expecting something and maybe some mic time for Paul Bearer, but like you say, it was so kind of I think they really did it quite subtly, if you like, with the Undertaker vignettes and just the appearance of him sitting on the steps. It's like they really haven't got a whole lot for this one, and they want to save all those little pieces for the weeks that are to go. And in fact, one interesting thing about SmackDown this week here in the UK and Ireland is that they were in fact airing UK only promos, if you like, with the Undertaker talking about how the upcoming tour will in fact feature Kane v Undertaker. So certainly a notice that will be going forward, and to be honest with you, I can see it going as far as Survivor Series.
Yeah, it's very, very possible. I mean, they really did drag the absolute balls out of it back in the days, so I'm sure they know there's plenty of juice, and I'm sure there's pay-per-view numbers with the monsters.
The Monsters always big draws, and of course the Undertaker traditionally the guy who sells out the house shows, and of course he still does those a lot of times. Guys are not on those, but I think in this case that he probably will be. Of course the last tour was the Farewell to the Undertaker tour or something like that, but of course he's back here and still in there, and I wonder if those people probably aren't too disappointed with being sold the show like that.
I'd say they're fairly okay about it.
So Kane and Undertaker back in the ring again in a cell. Now, thinking about this, of course, Undertaker famously in a cell with Shawn Michaels and indeed Mick Foley, whatever he was doing back then. But has he ever done it with Kane?
Probably.
And maybe even in a steel cage, but I'm sure they've been locked in steel before. Undertaker delivers in these Hell in a Cell matches. I mean, I again remember one from a few years ago. It was possibly after WrestleMania, or at least it was maybe a while after, but it was Undertaker versus Batista, and indeed I think that was the return of Edge, and you know, he always delivers in those, and it's one of his matches, so I'm going to say it's probably going to be a strong showing for Undertaker, but at this early point I'm going to go with Kane's push.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the continued push of Kane too, and more balls dragging on the floor stuff for a couple of more weeks. Yeah, because I mean, like 2 weeks, really, nothing has changed too much from their last match, so why should it next Sunday, really? So yeah, Kane.
Kane going over, looking like a good outcome, at least for TV, because if you're going to lose Undertaker, if we're to believe that he's not going to be here for much longer, then maybe Kane will be there a little bit longer, and perhaps he can fill that role and keep that spot, if you like, for fans who kind of expect a legitimate monster that indeed you can buy. And I think maybe Undertaker, the guy himself, realises this, that he does need to try and build somebody, and I think at this point Kane is about all they have left.
Yeah, there will be a time, I think. What they should really do, well, he's on the wrong brand, you see, that's where things get messy. Maybe they shouldn't, but yeah, a bit more, I think a bit more string on that shoelace, definitely.
Now, one of the things this week that I saw on one of the websites before I saw the week's TV was the announcement of that John Cena versus Wade Barrett match. Now, just a few months ago, I think we speculated on this, about how Barrett was given a tryout on a Monday Night Raw, I think long before Nexus was even an issue, and Barrett was put in there, had a good showing, and we both felt that that guy was just going to be going to the back and waiting for the call-up.
Yeah, he's definitely landed on his feet, like Sheamus and like many others. But for Barrett, I think the biggest thing was he's eliminating Cena last week, and I think that will be a noteworthy thing. Huge. For him going into this week's, next week's pay-per-view with Barrett. But the stipulation, as you said, we spoke about it a while ago. I think that that nails it, really.
What a stipulation, and as stipulations go, I tend to not like them. Come, you know, across ideas of old Cornette stipulations that maybe Vince Russo gave to him in retrospect, but ultimately I'm not too big into them, but I do find them entertaining, and I did like a couple of months ago the if Ray loses he joins Straight Edge Society, etc. So with that in mind, when I saw this one, I have to say it was mark out territory. If Wade Barrett wins, Cena joins Nexus, but if Cena wins, Nexus is done.
It's just the best, really, isn't it? I mean, what's going to happen to Heath Slater? Where does he end up? Or do we get I know they kind of spoke about trying Cena as a heel for the oldies like us, and a babyface for the kids, so maybe some Nexus involvement would lead to some pretty funny stuff. Maybe the babyface who wants to be babyface but has to heal it up could make for some fucking funny shit with Cena.
They know they're playing us fans, don't they? They realise the amount of people who speculated on a John Cena heel turn just before SummerSlam, and now this is the result of that. I think they know people want to see something happen with Cena, and they know very well how to work us fans, and that's something I have to say, you know, this week, that here's a guy in Barrett who came out of NXT Season 1, and I mean, the amount of criticism of NXT in the past few weeks, it's hard to believe that somebody came out of it that's really going all the way, and I think this proves it with him in there on a pay-per-view. Also, what a great way of having Cena involved without having him involved in the title picture as such. He's kind of sitting out of it, if you like, and yeah, personally, Nexus, time to disband. I think at the end of Raw this week, where you had that gauntlet match and the various guys taking on Cena, it looked to me like it was frail, and just 4 guys standing on the Titantron stage, it just doesn't look the part anymore. Especially
with who's left as well. I mean, Skip was the guy, really. The others just Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater especially are really just I don't know, great in my soul.